Boy in Green. Chapter 2. It had been 3 weeks since they began training. Peter did his very best, even when it came to mucking out the stables. However, Nibs, Curly, and Slightly always ruined or took credit for what Peter accomplished. In cooking, Curly added loads of salt to one dish before he stole Peter's recipe and then gave it to Slightly to cook up. In the outside work, Slightly splattered mud on Peter's newly cleaned windows, and once Peter redid the work, Slightly told the king he had to clean Peter's side of the window too. In the inside work of the castle, Nibs threw a vase at Peter's feet, making it look like he broke it. In the stables, they only made Peter trip and fall in some poo. Finally, at night training, they always did something to Peter's weapons. They made the bow's string flimsy, and the sword dull, and they left him with the largest set of armor. Now it was the day King Atmos would pick where the boys would work. Peter didn't like his odds, and it wasn't even his fault, but the other boys make him feel like it was. Either way, Peter wasn't likely to go into night training. Peter stood in a line with the rest of the boys, and he was at the end. The king started at the beginning with the twins. "You two be will gardeners." The boys nodded. Then it was Toodles. "Kitchen duty." Next was Curly. "You get cleaning inside the castle." After that was Nibs. "Night." Then it was Slightly. Peter crossed his fingers. Also night. Peter's heart sank. Sure, for all he knew he could get cooking like Toodles or cleaning the castle, but it was clear that Sir Don was right about Peter. Now that the night openings were both taken, it meant there was no way he would be one too. "As for you, you get to work in the stables," King Atmos said. He turned to all the boys, "Now get off to work, and report to your stations. You all have jobs to do." The boys rushed off, excited about what they ended up with, except Peter, who stayed put. King Atmos looked toward him, waiting for him to move or even blink. He didn't, so the king cleared his throat. Peter received the message and ran off to the stables. Once he got there, his new master handed him a brush before leaving Peter by himself to figure things out on his own. Peter went into the stables and decided to enjoy the moment where his only job was to brush the Pegasuses down. Peter spent his second week at the castle doing this. All day, every day, working in the stables. It was a good thing Peter liked Pegasuses, and he got to ride one every once in a while too. Another good thing was that he hardly saw the other boys. The only two he came in contact with during that week were Slightly and Nibs, who were training for jousting. They settled for making faces at him, instead of bragging. Little did Peter know that since the first day he arrived, someone had been watching him from a high window that looked out to where the stables were located. That someone witnessed how the boys cheated and how Peter got punished for it. One day, when Peter was tending to the Pegasuses, that someone came to see him. "Hey, you," they whispered, peeking through the stable door. Peter looked around. "Huh? Who?" "Over here." Peter headed over to the door and cracked it open. As he did, the person ran off as their blue cloak floated out behind them. He chased after them, wondering what they wanted. He followed the stranger until it was dusk and they arrived at one of the villages surrounding the castle. From there, the person entered an abandoned building. Quickly Peter went inside and spotted the person climbing a ladder to the attic, where more than half the roof was missing. Carefully, Peter ascended as well, until the person had nowhere else to go. The stranger turned around and Peter held in a blush. It was an elf girl, just about his age. She had light brown hair that was half up and bright blue eyes that made his blue look pale. She wore a blue and gold nightgown that was fit for a princess, and when she smiled, Peter was blinded by her light. "Good day," she said merrily as she curtsied. "Good day," Peter repeated, trying not to sound stiff. "What did you want?" She continued to smile. "Oh, I just wanted you to know I saw what those boys did." Rightly, you should have been training to be a knight. How would you know? I work around the castle too, she explained. No, how would you know I could be a knight? Peter corrected. They never gave me a chance to swing my sword. The girl put her hands together and said, because of your green hat. You must be the hero the creator told my great-grandmother about. I've heard stories about you all my life from her. That hat is also the hat the explorers wear, but the creator told my great-grandmother the boy's hat would have a red feather in it. Peter bit his lip. I don't think that's me. The girl walked closer to Peter. She circled him until she stood by his shadow. She watched it carefully, tapping her chin. There was something about your shadow having a mind of its own. It doesn't seem to now, but that's all right. See, I don't recall the stories about you making it such a big deal that your shadow moves by itself. I'm almost glad it doesn't. Otherwise, that would be. Before the girl could go any further, Peter slowed her down. Can I, get your name? The girl looked up at him and giggled. Oh, I nearly forgot. My name is Zelilia Wendy Moira Angela Darling. Wendy was my great-grandmother and Moira was my grandmother and then Angela is my mother. Queen Angela? Peter questioned. Zelilia blushed. Oops, I suppose I was trying to keep that a secret. Oh well, I trust you enough. You're going to be the hero, after all, Peter Pan. At this, Peter's mouth fell open. He hadn't told her his name. Even if she heard it from the others, it was likely they only said Peter. How do you know my name? I've been told stories about you since I was very little, like I said. I'm surprised my father didn't see it. You have a very important job, you know. Working in the stables? Zelilia giggled again, then she pulled Peter's hat down in front of his eyes. No, silly. As the princess, I'm giving you a new job. You're going to look after the great pixie tree. That's what I was told since I was young. Sometimes I would even pretend I was off on the adventure. Peter put his hat back in place. Are you sure? She nodded and then added, but it will be our secret. You'll have to train yourself. And not just in fighting, but in music. Do you like music? Slowly, he bobbed his head up and down. I used to have some pipes. I played them all the time, but Curly crushed it. Oh, that's sad, she said, finally no longer smiling, but she slapped it right back on. How about we find you another instrument? We won't be able to do it tonight though, so we'll have to meet here tomorrow at the same time. Zelilia walked back to the ladder and climbed down. Once she was on the ground floor, Peter followed after, but she didn't wait for him as she took off back to the castle. The next night, Peter eagerly waited for her to come into the attic. She came finally, with a bag tossed over her shoulder. Once she got to the attic, she opened the bag and let 5 instruments tumble out. Peter looked at each of them. One was a flute, another a small drum, the next a harmonica, then some pipes, and a small harp. Peter took the pipes first. Zelilia stared at him in anticipation, waiting for him to play. He did. It was a short tune, but it didn't sound painful to the ears. You should choose another one, just in case. She lifted the harp. Peter took it and strummed a few times. With the harp, it didn't even matter if he knew how to play or not, it always sounded good. It was probably another reason Zelilia picked it for him. Good, now with these you should be able to please the pixies. I've never been to the Great Pixie Tree or off of this island, so I wouldn't know. What? Peter exclaimed, then why are you giving me this job? Because it's what you're supposed to do. And my father never lets me see it. Now try playing that same song you played before, but on the harp. Peter plucked at a few of the strings until he found the right notes. After that, he played the song. Zalilia clapped her hands when he finished. Now all we have to do is train you and send you off to the tree. From inside her cloak, she pulled out a map of Terranil and pointed to an island in the corner to the left at the very bottom. That's where it is. Princess. Zalilia, she interrupted, no chosen hero should call me princess. Oh. Peter lost his train of thought for a bit. Finally, he remembered himself. What exactly does the tree do? She smiled. It's the only source of magic in the entire world, but only pixies can harvest it. I'm sure you know that the pixies give the fairies magic at least. Peter nodded. So no one can steal magic then? Zaliila thought about it. Well, there are many ways to get the magic out. One is to drain a fairy's energy, or someone could try to enslave the pixies. I couldn't imagine someone trying to do that, however. Now, we better get you. Zalilia, a voice boomed below them. The two looked over the edge and saw King Atmos standing on the ground level. He didn't look pleased in the slightest. Father, how long have you? I have heard enough to know what task you think you have given the boy. I told you those dreams and stories are nothing. Zalilia took Peter's arm and brought him closer to where her father could see him better. His name is Peter Pan, and he came wearing a green hat with a red feather. I've been told all my life about what Peter will do. How a youthful boy will protect the magic in our world. King Atmos put his foot down. Once again, stories and dreams. Get your head out of the clouds and become a woman. It is time for you to grow up, Zalilia. Time for you to take things seriously. We will choose another for this task. Zalilia's eyes started to water as her voice choked up. When her father wanted her to grow up, that meant it was time for her to open her eyes to suitors. She knew well enough that she had reached the youngest age to where marriage was accepted, but she didn't think her father would force her. Of course, she pushed him to his limits just then. Slowly, her grip around Peter's arm loosened. Peter watched as she humbly glided to the ladder with her things and climbed down to her father. King Atmos pointed towards the door. She bowed to him and left the rundown house. King Atmos peered up at Peter. As for you, I cannot let this continue further. You are banished in the morning. And don't think about trying to find the tree. Peter nodded, his chest feeling heavy despite how excited he had been throughout the day. After going down the ladder, he followed King Atmos out of the building. Peter messed up big time. He wished he could blame it on Zalilia, but he didn't have to follow her the night before or meet with her for a second time. Tomorrow he would have to go out on his own with no job or food or even a place to stay. Once they reached the castle, Peter went to his small room and uncomfortable bed. For him though, he tried to enjoy having a bed. More than ever before he wished his parents were alive. Life would have been better that way. Just as his eyes were closed, he heard something slip through the crack of his door. He peeked one eye open to see what it was. He was surprised to find the harp, some gold coins, and the map of Terranil. With the gifts was a note. He read it quietly to himself. Dear Peter, I'm sorry for getting you into trouble. However, I still believe that you are fated for a very noble task. This is why I leave the harp and map in your care. The coins are for you to get food. Go to the tree and help protect it when you are ready. Sincerely, Zalilia. Peter smiled and folded the letter before tucking it away in his pocket. He would keep this for the future. At least now he had a goal and purpose. He wasn't just going out in the world with nothing. And it was sure better than shoveling manure.